Greetings and salutations, my lovely little bitelings. My name is Wiggy and today I'm going to be doing something a little different. Today I will be talking about the best MMORPGs currently not released in the West. Before I continue, however, do note that all of the games I will be listing are currently playable right now. No matter the country, they just require some effort to get working in your region. And a strong PC, but I guess that goes for most MMORPGs nowadays. I'm gonna go ahead and list these MMORPGs in no specific order, so the final MMORPG listed doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Also, a quick question before jumping into this list. What, in your opinion, is the best MMORPG right this moment? So what is Closers? Well, it's a free-to-play action MMORPG that was released in Korea in 2014. And if you haven't noticed already, yes, it is anime-inspired. Closers is set in a modern-ish world that's overrun by monsters. Well, you'll need to pick one of the 8 playable classes or characters, if you prefer. Each character has their own unique playstyle, however. And as you continue the story and level up, your class upgrades, giving you access to new devastating abilities, and new areas, of course. Now, regarding the areas themselves, Closers, much like Vindictus, is instance. For instance, you start off in a quest hub, where you will then be teleported to another area to complete your quests. Once completed, you'll then be returned to the quest hub. I will point out, unlike Vindictus, Closers is a side-scroller. Now, regarding the combat. In Closers, the combat is fantastic. It's fast, it's fluid, it's quite addictive, although it can get repetitive at times, as you'll no doubt find yourself repeating skill combinations since they work best together, or repeating the same dungeons or instances until you're high enough for the next area. Regarding the graphics, the characters in Closers are very detailed and generally look stunning, be it male or female. The battle animations and effects are great. All in all, I'd have to say it's top tier for an anime-inspired MMORPG. Bless is an open-world fantasy MMORPG developed by New Wiz Games. Now, in Bless Online, you get the option to play one of 2 factions at war with each other, not unlike WoW or Ion. Both sides have 4 races, all starting in their own race-specific starting zone and starting questlines. I do believe once you leave the starting area, however, all the races' questlines converge and everyone follows along the same base storyline. Now, graphically speaking, Bless Online looks absolutely amazing. The character models are gorgeous, the scenery is unique and detailed, whilst having a medieval-ish theme going on. I will point out that there are some minor issues with the graphics, like characters glowing like a light bulb, and shadows not appearing, or characters being shaded out while in light. While this doesn't necessarily detract from the overall graphics of the game, it can be a little distracting. However, it is just a bug and will no doubt be fixed in a future update or patch. The combat in Bless is tab target and is surprisingly one of the major things people seem to complain about regarding Bless. Although before you judge Bless's combat too harshly, do note that Area Games, the publisher that will be bringing Bless to the West, will be overhauling the combat to suit a Western market. And while I personally don't actually mind tab targeting in MMORPGs, as I've played WoW for years, I am looking forward to seeing how the combat changes. Soulworker is an action anime-inspired MMORPG released in Korea in 2016. One of the first things you'll no doubt notice is the beautifully rendered cel-shaded graphics and the fancy spell effects. Unless you're not into the whole anime-inspired MMORPG thing, in which case, no big deal, to each their own. Soulworker, much like Closers or Vindictus, is an instance-based MMO. However, as you continue along the story and level up, you'll gain access to new towns, unlocking more quests and areas, and even more companions. Soulworker's combat is damn fantastic. It has one of the best feeling combats I've ever had the pleasure of playing. It's fast, it's fluid, it doesn't seem to have any ping issues getting in the way, the areas are pretty from a post-apocalyptic standpoint, the bosses are actually quite challenging, the skill effects are top tier. However, like with most action MMORPGs, it can get quite repetitive once you find what works best versus specific monsters. Before we move on to the next MMO, I would like to point out that there are 5 classes in total so far, with unique weapons and playstyles. Also, there is some in the way of character customization, however, most of it comes after you've made your character, as you can farm for outfits and hairstyles. Moonlight Blade is an open-world action MMORPG. Now, before I get into the combat, I will point out that there are 8 classes to choose between, one of which is gender-locked. Another thing, from what I can tell, all of the classes have a unique starting area and quest chains once you finish the initial tutorial area. So if you intend on playing with a friend, you may have to be the same class in order to play together, at least early on. So the combat in Moonlight Blade is action-oriented, and it is very fast and very flashy, from flipping into the air and impaling your foes to throwing giant energy spears at your enemies. Just a quick FYI though, there are no monsters in Moonlight Blade. Every enemy within the game world is human. While this may be a downer to some, I think it fits with the general scheme of things, as it's a wuxia-themed MMO, thus the setting, the buildings, the outfits, the flying... Wait, what? Okay, so you can't actually fly, but it's close enough. In Moonlight Blade, you can use your mana or MP, or whatever it's called in Chinese, to jump into the air. Once in the air, you can use your other aerial skills to push you more forward or higher up. But generally, as long as you have mana, you can keep going. Since everything in Moonlight Blade is Chinese and there are no English translations out yet, I can't really say how good the story aspect is, as I can't actually understand or read what they're saying, although I do enjoy watching what happens in the cutscenes. That being said, from what little I can tell so far, the game does seem to be very linear and story-driven. So graphically speaking, Moonlight Blade has one of the best graphics found in any MMORPG to date. The game looks stunningly beautiful. It's even got day and night cycle, weather climates like sandstorms, snowing, raining, but I guess most MMOs have that one. Pretty much anything you'd want, except for one thing that might deter people, which is a lack of variation and customization. In Moonlight Blade, you can't change your hair color, and you can't make a Western or fantasy character, nor are there any non-Asian themed areas, which doesn't bother me personally. However, I can see it being a problem for some people. Dragon's Dogma is an open-world fantasy MMORPG that was released in 2015 in Japan. Now, Dragon's Dogma is a lot like its non-MMO counterpart. It's got a deep, well-thought-out story, tons of class customization, it's got a huge world to explore, it's got action combat, climbable environments, even climbable monsters. It's got everything the original console game had, but in an MMO package. But, for those of you who have never played the original Dragon's Dogma, allow me to elaborate a little more. You, the player, are an Arisen, and as such, you have the ability to control pawns, which are essentially NPC party members. Pawns have the same class and character customization as you, but are mainly there if you don't have anyone else to play with. In Dragon's Dogma, you take quests like any normal MMORPG, so nothing different there. However, there are lots of things within the game world that are interactable. For instance, if you see a destroyed house, you can climb it. See that cliff? You can probably climb it. See that angry hulking giant? Yeah, you can climb it. Not only that, however, it's got combo-ish action combat, pretty similar to that of Dark Souls, actually, if I had to compare. It also has a multitude of classes, some of which are only available after you've made it out of the tutorial. Oh, and there's a shit ton of class customization. Though if you ever make a mistake or end up not liking your class, you can change vocations whenever you go back to the inn in the main cities, so don't worry. Phantasy Star Online 2 is an action sci-fi MMORPG released in Japan in 2012. So Phantasy Star Online uses a similar formula to Vindictus, aka you take quests from the quest hub where you then take your ship and complete said quests. Now, although they do use the same formula, it feels completely different somehow. It could be due to the story in Phantasy Star Online 2, as there is an English translation and you can actually understand it, unlike some of the MMOs I've listed. Whilst Phantasy Star Online 2 is instanced, the areas are large enough to allow you to have fun looking around, killing monsters and whatnot, though some of the areas can be quite small and very linear, which is sad because it's a lot of fun. In Phantasy Star Online, you can choose your class like any normal MMORPG. However, you can change your class whenever you want while you're on the ship or quest hub. Not only can you just change your class, but while you're at the skill tree, you can customize your skills through the skill tree, not unlike the talent tree in WoW or Rift. Now, the combat in Phantasy Star Online 2 is great. It's got action combat, it's got some auto-locking at times, which is never a bad thing. The skills are flashy, it plays smoothly. There's a large variety in weapons as each class can equip multiple weapons appropriate to their class. For instance, a hunter, which is a two-handed sword user, can use a gun blade, but can't use shoe blades. or a cannon, whereas a brawler can use shield blades but can't use two-handed swords. The graphics in Phantasy Star Online 2 are good. Nothing fantastic, but I personally find it nice. But it can be a little flat and stiff. The characters do look fantastic though, and the amount of clothing and character customization without having to pay for anything is just shocking. If only more games allowed for such customization. Monster Hunter Online is an action MMORPG and is quite similar to its non-MMO counterpart. In Monster Hunter Online, much like the other action MMORPGs, is instanced. However, unlike them, the instances are massive areas, with each place having different biomes and monsters. Now, there are no classes in Monster Hunter, instead there are weapon types. Each weapon has its very own purpose and uses. For instance, the Greatsword is the strongest weapon and can break up monster parts easily. However, it's very slow and therefore fast monsters will be a challenge to beat, whereas dual swords are fast but they can't deal as much damage or knock down monsters. Luckily, you can change your weapons whenever you want to suit the type of monster you're hunting, so long as you have the resources to make the weapons, of course. Monster Hunter Online has beautiful graphics. The monsters are very detailed, the variety in monster types is impressive, the scenery is fantastic, the character models are gorgeous. It's hard to believe it was released in 2012. Dragon Quest X is an MMORPG that was released in 2013 in Japan. So if you've ever played a Dragon Quest game, you'll probably notice it looks and feels very similar to its non-MMO counterpart. And it is. As soon as you enter, you'll notice the iconic music and art style. Dragon Quest X is a gem. It blends the typical Dragon Quest story, aka you're a hero who needs to save the world, with MMORPG elements while not losing anything that made Dragon Quest special. So the combat in Dragon Quest is turn-based, where you run into a monster in the overworld and a battle will start. However, you do have a limited amount of time you can spend on your turn, so think fast. You can still party up like in normal MMORPGs, however there are some unique things to point out before we move on. For instance, like in previous Dragon Quest titles, you can still capture monsters and train them to be party members. However, you can also rent players from the inns. When a player goes offline and sets themselves at the inn, you can hire them for your party as an AI-controlled character. This doesn't just benefit the person who hired you, however, as you still get XP for being hired while you were logged off. So the world of Dragon Quest is large, however it does have loading screens between zones and towns, like Final Fantasy XIV. Dragon Quest X has a similar job system to Final Fantasy XIV, where you can choose between 6 classes that can be changed whenever you go back to the town, so you don't have to worry about picking the wrong class first. Graphically speaking, Dragon Quest doesn't do anything fancy. It's nice to look at, but by no means groundbreaking. However, it doesn't need to be. Dragon Quest X has the perfect blend of traditional gaming meeting MMO. Alright guys, well, this is my list of the top MMORPGs not currently released in the West. If you think I missed an MMORPG or you disagree with something I said, be sure to leave a comment, as I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, don't forget to let me know what MMORPG you believe is the best MMORPG on the market right now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to sub and stay updated with other videos like this one. Well, good day, night, or afternoon, wherever it is where you are. I'll see you guys in the next video.
We fell out of love like shooting stars, came crashing down, and we're building back up again now. I see your heart, see your mind, see all you hide. I won't let you go, can't let this die. When you lose yourself